We're looking at Lake Street pedestrian access as well, so providing some sort of access for people to get to the parking lot from the boardwalk that's currently proposed, as well as a possible village access easement to a parcel that is currently in the bottomlands. I'm going to run through the first couple of items in the review, starting on page 3, just to run down our reasoning here. According to the zoning ordinance for the use and harmonious design, multifamily residential alone is not a permitted use unless there is some sort of non-residential or...
What page are you reading from? I can't find it.
Sorry, page 3. Yep.
So which page is agenda packet?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'm on the site plan review.
Yeah, I've been clicking through with my mouse on the 130 pages.
Yeah.
I really am so sorry.
Sorry about that.
Are you on your own computer or the village computer?
So
If you
with 107 is what I've got,
107?
but that might be the previous one.
Which page is it on yours, page 3?
Page 3 of the site plan review. Yes. It should be site plan review number 2 from October 25th.
Site plan review, page 7A T. Is that the right one?
No, go, the bottom right corner, I have packet page 107.
That's the third page.
Correct.
I think I have it.
Starts off site plan review is what the title at the top is.
Yeah, I'm not used to having the stuff in the agenda and edits. It used to be in the packet flowing down. So sorry, this is the first time. Okay.
It would be packet page 114, I believe.
All right.
114.
Page 114.
Okay, so there's 2 review letters.
There's our first review, site plan review 1. We're looking at site plan review 2.
Okay, they both say site plan review. So, okay, I'm on 114.
All right. Yep, so just running through the use and harmonious design standard in more detail. My finding was that this is not a permitted use unless there is a non-residential or commercial component on the ground floor facing M24 with dwelling units on the upper levels. If this interpretation stands with the Board of Zoning Appeals, then the use classification would limit density on this site to 10 units per acre. So we need some more clarification, a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals to allow the use of this land for multifamily residential only without a commercial component. Related to that, like I said, this would impact density, but all of their other setback, height, lot coverage, those all meet the standards of the ordinance. So it's really just based on that use variance being granted. Standard number 3 for natural features, screening and landscaping. We noted that there should be additional screening to fully block the view of the parking and drive area from Greens Park. The applicant has submitted a response letter to most of these items as well, so that is included in the packet. But they have said that they will provide additional landscaping. They won't be able to extend the wall along that entire southern property line, but they will provide additional screening to Greens Park. So I just want to make note of that. Your ordinance requires plant diversity of no more than 20% of a particular type of plant material provided on the site. The Planning Commission may opt to waive this requirement should they find the site's landscaping to be sufficient. A note about common open space. This was calculated outside of the project area in this most recent site plan submittal. We can see that they have plenty of open space. They just need to modify their calculations to include land that's only within the project area. They've noted as such that they will provide this revised calculation in the new plan. Our engineers corroborate this finding that they have plenty of space. They just need to adjust the calculations. As far as access and circulation goes, this is standard number 4. I'm turning the page here. In this most recent site plan submission, they have located a T-turn for emergency access in the northwest portion of this site. This is within the Lake Street right-of-way. These plans have been approved by the fire marshal with conditions, but this T-turn is located in the right-of-way, so this would need council approval to have this emergency access area. That would go for the proposed plaza space as well. When it comes to pedestrian connectivity, for mixed-use developments, it's indicated that sidewalks are required within the site and between other sites within the district. So there was a gap in pedestrian circulation leading from the boardwalk to the rest of the site. So there's a harbor master that is down more west in the site. They've since provided a connection, a stairwell from the boardwalk up to the parking lot. That's in their response letter as well. As far as any easements go, there is a small piece of village-owned land which is just north of the boathouse proposed in the site plan, that this development is kind of circumscribing, at least on the eastern side. So it's cut off from land access to the village. So as part of the approval of the T-turn and the plaza within the right-of-way, the village council may choose to request an access easement to that portion of the bottomlands. It's very small. There's no land or development, but it's contiguous to the Greens Park parcel. So we'll want to see if the village council would be interested in requesting an access easement by land for that piece of property. For parking and loading, again, we just note the T-turn that is being proposed for emergency access. They just need to provide council approval or seek council approval for that T-turn. They will be posting no parking signage within that area to hopefully prevent any sort of unauthorized vehicular parking within that T-turn. Moving on to building design and architecture. Of course, we're all familiar with Mosherry's high level of design and great quality of buildings. So we just ask that material samples be provided and approved by the Planning Commission. And then finally, engineering and stormwater management. This is all subject to village engineering approval, which you should have that letter as well. There are some items that remain to be addressed on the engineering side, but as far as planning and zoning goes, we do find that the project complies with the overall intent of the zoning ordinance. There are some items to be addressed, and I kind of break these down into 3 different buckets, if you will, for your consideration. So the first bucket are items that can be addressed by the Planning Commission here tonight, which is the waiver of the plant diversity requirements, and that the building materials are provided and approved by the Planning Commission. Some of the administrative items that require additional review and approval, the pedestrian connections that were mentioned, providing access to the boardwalk and the parking lot, open space calculation revisions, additional screening on the property line facing Greens Park. We had mentioned trash collection, just providing some sort of letter of approval from the waste management service that they'll be contracting with to have enough access to get to all of these trash locations. Stormwater management still needs to be approved by the village engineer, but detailed engineering review and approval is required prior to submitting for building permits. And then we ask that a note be included on the site plan stating that any future improvements of the boathouse and harbor master are limited to 50% of the true cash value. This would be subject to review and approval by the township building official. But essentially we are allowing this boathouse to exist as a legal non-conforming use and structure. So they are limited to 50% of their improvements of the true cash value of that structure. Finally, we also recommend site plan approval based on the following approvals from the Board of Zoning Appeals and Village Council for the use variance request, as well as the proposed emergency access and pedestrian plaza encroachment from the Village Council. Should these last two approvals from the BZA or the Village Council not be granted, substantial changes to the proposed site layout would be required, and if necessary, we would recommend that the applicant address all of the items in our report and provide an amended site plan for Planning Commission review and consideration. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a presentation that applicant would like to make?
There would be a presentation, except the IT in the room doesn't work. So I'm going to request that if we can get somebody to look at that. This is actually the third time it's happened to us. So for any applicant, it's not very ideal. So Dominic, I know you're going to wing it.
A couple of the issues that we have talked to the staff about. So what I'll do is I'll kind of follow along with what you guys have through there. One thing I did want to mention though, obviously, you know, previously we had this as one large PUD. Now to clarify, because there's some confusion, it's really almost 5 different parcels now. The peninsula is coming in as basically 3 houses that we're going to be building and selling right on the peninsula there. Flint Street is actually 3 parcels as well, and that'll be for sale product at the same time. Where the beach house is in the middle, that's going to be undeveloped for right now. And then Starborg, it should be, you can kind of see the outline of the plan. That itself goes all the way to that little building we're calling the Harbor Master, and all the way up to M24 through there. On the packet that I gave you, if you guys want to flip with me, that'd be great. We'll go through that a little bit. So the MU district, just to read the ordinance that I highlighted through there, that has the MU district is intended to promote compatible combinations of commercial office service and residential developments along M24 south of Pine Creek to serve as a gateway to the DC Downtown Center District. Office, commercial, and retail development should be located along M24 with residential land uses located along the lake to buffer the existing single-family neighborhoods from the impact of non-residential uses on M24. That is a statement of purpose for the mixed-use district. So since this piece is very unusual, it's on both the lake and it's on M24. Obviously, it's on the corner of Flint and M24 there. With that in mind, we chose that the lake is more important, so we decided to make this all residential. And that's the direction we went through. As we continue with the ordinance, if you look under permitted uses, and this is where we have a little bit of a disagreement with the planner, on number 10, the second page I just gave you, you can read it, single family and multifamily dwelling units. So this is under what is allowed, what are permitted uses. And it simply says, number 10, single family and multifamily dwelling units, they're allowed, but they're subject to the design standards of section 9.03C, which I'll show you next coming up through there. Now this next sentence is a little confusing. It says, when located above the ground floor story and subject to the ground floor being only non-residential. I think that and at the end there might have been confusing. It should say and, it should maybe say and, then subject to the ground floor being non-residential only. But normally what we do in ordinances, we see what the rest of the ordinance says to get it clarified. So if you want to go to the next page, under the design standards, for the section 9.03 under development standards, section C, it basically says, you know, now that they've said that multifamily and residential are allowed, the following design standards shall apply to all new construction in the MU district. Site layout and uses. It is the intent of the MU district to promote non-residential, commercial, office and service land uses along N24 and residential land uses to buffer the lake and existing residential, looking at next page, neighborhoods, from the impact of non-residential commercial developments N24. So for us, the ordinance is very specific. If you're on the lake, you do residential. Our other two projects that were already approved were large enough where we had residential on the water, and then we could do a buffer of commercial, live, work, service-oriented product along M24. This particular site is just too small to really do that. We think residential, and I have a list of benefits to it, but we think residential is the best solution for this for a couple of reasons. Number one, MDOT doesn't allow us a curb cut on the M24, so there will be no curb cut like there is now existing there. That has to be removed. So really the only entrance to this site is the new entrance that we're putting in from Flint Street, which I think you guys have in your packet. I had it in the presentation to show you, but at our expense, we're putting in that new kind of 90-degree angle onto Flint Street and Lake Street, making it a much more safer and better connection, which is what MDOT wants as well at the same time.
How far does it come down from the corner, do you know?
It's probably, I would say 100 feet, Nancy? Yeah, about 100 feet, it'll come down from there. And the site plan I have in this presentation, but I can't show you. So,
Oh, I saw it, I couldn't.
yeah, it's about 100 feet that we're moving it down through there. So we think residential for this is the best use. We think that with all those benefits to the community, making it more walkable, it's actually, when residential there, it's actually less use as far as commercial traffic going back and forth. It's going to create less traffic. It's better for the community, creating more of a downtown environment. So we feel that based on the ordinance that we're well within what it states. If you continue on the next part of the page that I gave you, you'll talk about the next section, which is section 7, and it talks about residential dwelling units. It talks about single-family dwelling units having a minimum square footage of 900, which we meet. The next part, residential density in areas of sites that are dedicated solely to residential. Our site is dedicated solely to residential. Those land uses shall be permitted in the RM district based on the area of the site dedicated solely to residential use. So because we are solely residential use, we really actually go to that 15 units per acre, where we're basically 12 units as of right now. We have basically the 11 new units and the 1 residential above the boathouse. And then the last part of that residential unit, section C, dwelling units proposed on the second floor of a mixed-use building shall be permitted. I think this is clarifying the confusion that was earlier. So basically they're saying here that the second floor of a mixed-use building shall be permitted. It shall not exceed the 10 units, dwelling units per acre. So to us, the ordinance is fairly clear. And then the last page that you turn to, I just want to bring up, in the review, the planner states, and I highlighted it for you, the Board of Zoning Appeals grants a use variance for the residential, for the requirement that states multifamily dwelling units shall only be located above the ground floor. That's actually not in your ordinance at all. If you look down below, what the ordinance states is single-family, multifamily dwelling units subject to design standards of section 9.03C, which I've already showed you, we meet all those design standards. Now, this is a part that is a little confusing. When located above the ground floor, I think the "and" should have been, and then they are subject to the ground floor only being non-residential use. It doesn't say at all, shall only be located above the ground floor and subject to the ground floor being non-residential. So the ordinance is not very clear, but I think that first page I gave you, talking about the intent of the ordinance, what the Planning Commission allows and can't allow, I think we meet those 100%, and we meet the spirit and the intent of the ordinance, even though that one section is a little confusing. It doesn't say anywhere in the ordinance specifically that multifamily dwelling units shall only be located above the ground floor. So those are the things that I wanted to point out to you. And hopefully when you look at this and review it, you understand it the same way that we've kind of read it, because we'd like to get approval from you and start to get this project, moving forward as quickly as we can. It's been a long, tedious process. The rest of the presentation was really just more drawings and things that you actually saw last month already, but more than happy if this was working to show them to you again, and I'm sure they're in your packet as well at the same time. Any questions?
So the park property that's attached to the frontage of your proposed development,
Correct.
what was the final disposition with the village attorney about? Was there-
Basically, they left that open when we went in front of village council before, so we knew we have to bring that up to them again when we go in front of them and talk about that piece. That piece is landlocked. We surround it. We wanted to get a lease agreement from you at that time. It's actually not part of our development now, so I'm sure we're going to have further discussions with the village council.
So currently the police boat dock is there?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's further down. I don't think it's on there.
You moved it to green?
Yeah, they moved it to Greens. I don't think it's at those docks that are there.
The old agreement was the police boat dockage and all that stuff.
Yes.
That was a previous agreement, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe with the developer, okay. Okay, so that village-owned property then is public property in the middle of a...
Of the lake, correct. Yeah, there's like, I think, 3 docks on there. We don't have a use for those docks, so they're not part of our product at all.
So can I go over there and sit on that lawn?
You'd have to cross our property first. I'll charge you a fee for that, but you could do it.
Okay, so that will be addressed though.
Yeah, we have to talk to village council about that piece and what's the future of it. It was a more integral part of the PUD. It's really not part of this at all, so there's gonna have to be some discussion on that piece.
Well, the landscape, it looks like a lot of landscaping for the small amount of...
There is. We're putting a tremendous amount there, especially getting rid of the blight in the building that's there now. I think it'll be a huge improvement in that whole corner through there.
So I don't see a problem with the landscaping. There was an issue with some landscaping.
I think it's just not verbatim of the ordinance, but I think the landscaping is more than enough and more than adequate for this project. Also, to the sample boards, I had samples in the presentation, but obviously I can't show you that, so we can actually bring some hard samples in and have them here at the office in the next few days if you'd like.
Yeah, I think this will be a pleasant looking development and it should be to another cell phone store with bright lights. That's been a sore spot for some of the neighbors.
Yeah,
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
Everybody understand how we're reading the ordinance? I think that's really the big thing.
One question about the fire engine backing up, that's gonna be a dedicated pavers or
Correct.
reinforced turf?
Yep. Yeah, correct.
Okay, clearly marked.
Yeah, and keep in mind, those, these buildings are sprinkled too.
Yes, we have the regular, in this, or in our neighborhoods, we regularly have the garbage trucks backing up the street to get the garbage because they can't turn around in many of our neighborhoods.
Yeah, and same thing, our vendor doesn't have an issue with the same site in Rochester where they're handling the same situation, so we'll get a letter from them, that shouldn't be an issue at all.
And then the fire department did approve the fiber
Correct.
configuration.
Right.
As it states right now.
Yes, correct.
Any other questions? Okay, I have one question. I just like clarification. When I look through all of the materials that's in the 100 and some pages of our packet, page 64, which was the site plan review number 2 dated September 18th, 23rd of 2023, talks about slip locations. And it says that 7 remaining for the community lease. The minutes from last week, or last month, page 8, our October 2nd meeting, talks about 115 residents, 97 slips, 17 short, and they
Correct.
will be rented by residents and not the public. That's in the minutes from last month. And
Yeah.
then in the review that Gage just went over, that's our site plan number 2, that was dated the 25th of October, talks about 16 docks total by residents and 11 leasable, adding up to 27. So I just like clarification, what is the intent for leasing of docks from Mosherry?
Well, to clarify just one more thing, I'm not sure which ones are there, but it should be 26 total from 46 that were there now, or 43 that were there now. There's going to be 16 that are reserved for the residents that are in Starboard, basically being Flint Street and being what's in the 11 units through there. There's about 10 remaining, and then there's one boathouse. Those should be the actual numbers, and should be what were submitted in the second review. If not, we'll correct that.
And
So my real question is, you know,
I'm getting to that. I just want to make sure the numbers are correct first.
keep in mind, the plans that you see with the docks did not get changed per the planning commission meeting because we had already submitted them prior. They had not been reviewed, and they just reviewed those old plans per the meeting. So, you know, the docks that were discussed at the meeting never had the ability to get changed.
So the new numbers that we're going to resubmit to are 26, 16, and there's 10 remaining. And then to answer your question, basically, as we discussed the last time, there's 115 residents that we have. With all those docks in mind, we only have 97, so we're still short docks. Those 10 docks will be first leased to our residents. We don't think they're going to be open or available to the public, but at that time, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, so.
okay, so at our last month's meeting, you said that you were not going to rent outside of your residence, and now you're saying that that's.
No, our goal is to always rent to our residents first. So I guess if we want to go on record, yeah, so we can go on record again stating that we're going to rent to our residents first. The intent is not to go to the outside public at all.
Thank you.
And then we'll correct this, once again, like it's a matter of when we get the reviews in, but those are the actual numbers that we'll have on the next one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Since you brought up docks, so the 3 proposed residential on Flint Street, are they gonna get a dock?
Yes.
One of those 10,
No, one of the 16.
one of the 6?
Yeah, 26 total, 16 for our residents.
And then the new site condo on the.
That's all private, and that has nothing to do with this dock count.
Okay, so all that rental fleet dockage from there will disappear,
That all disappears, correct.
and they'll have standard.
They'll have whatever yes, correct. Whatever allowed on a typical normal residential lot.
And then there'll be 3 lots there.
Correct. Correct.
To all intents and purposes, just look like houses on lots.
Correct. Yeah, once they're sold, they won't be part of our development anymore. The only thing that we're keeping and leasing are the 11 units that we're talking about here on Starboard.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, the boathouse. What was the final disposition with the boat?
The boathouse is going to remain existing as it is. As of right now, we don't have any development plans to it, but once the 11 units are done, we may go back through normal channels, and it'd be a 50% is all we can really renovate it to, but we will probably want to fix it up and have it match those units, just for aesthetic purposes alone.
Anybody gonna live there?
Yes, that'll be a rental. That'll be one of there's 11 units there, that's 12. So on this .83 acres, it's a total of 12 units, which is just under 15 units per acre.
I know I'm repeating, but I just want to be clear on all these little ones.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to open it up for any public comments on this agenda item. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve this per the planner's recommendation?
No, I was, leaning to approve it. We didn't okay, so I'll make a motion to approve it, with the conditions listed by the planner, with the exception of the requirement to go in for the zoning approval. I don't believe that's necessary. I believe it's within our purview, is that the right word? To make that decision here and now. And I kind of really support their explanation of the zoning ordinance. So I'd like to move to approve it with the deletion of that one item of going to the seeking BZA. I don't think that's necessary at all.
Okay. And can we add to that motion something relative to dock rental to tenants?
I could withdraw my motion, you could, if that's the same motion, you can make a motion and add the doc, to make it clean for the new lady person, clerk. Sorry.
Okay?
Okay, all right, what would you like to add, which I'm happy with?
I'd just like to add that the docks as proposed will be available to be rented to most area tenants exclusively.
Exclusively?
That's what we're,
Did they say that?
I think so.
They do that word, but
Well,
it's the preferential.
no.
Yeah, so the language I heard was essentially, you know, correct me if I'm wrong,
Intent.
the intent was to, for residents. And essentially how I understand that is the intent would be if all residents don't take the vote slips, then they would be available for the public. Is that
Just to
correct?
clarify, that's correct, but we can do it exclusive, it's fine. We really feel some people are gonna rent 2 from us and so forth, so we're fine with that. If that makes, you know, you more comfortable, we're okay with that.
There's considerable concern over overcrowding on the lake.
No question about it, yeah. Don't forget though, there were 43 here now, we're cutting it down to 26, and we're helping the best we can as well too. But yes, no issue with that though, if you wanna add that.
And I don't believe that you'll have any problem running them to your leases.
We don't need it.
It shouldn't be a problem.
So Mike, you want to make that motion again?
Sure, so I'll restate the motion to approve, based on the planner's recommendations with the exclusion of the BZA requirement and with the addition for that the dockage will be used exclusively for the Mosheri residents. Or
That's fine.
support.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Was that Ed? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Was it Ed or Nick that supported?
That was that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Discussion on the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So I just want to make sure we're clear about the understanding of the zoning code and what it requires. So, and I do appreciate the information that was provided because it is very helpful. So in the packet that was provided to us tonight, it does talk about, on page 3 of that packet, number 10, single-family and multiple-family dwelling units, subject to the design standards of section 9.03C, when located above the ground story and subject to the ground story being only non-residential use. What I'm hearing from some commissioners is that that provision may not require single-family or multifamily dwelling units to have that non-residential component on the first floor. As much as I would like to say, because I love this plan, I love the development, and as much as I would like to say that I agree with the position of the developer, I just don't see that in this language. And I could support well, first of all, before I say anything more, I'd like to hear from some of the other commissioners why you believe that language says something else. My mind is open to being convinced.
Mr. Lamb?
What I like particularly about the petitioner's interpretation of the ordinance was the fact that it pointed that the lake properties and the other residential properties in the village are different and unique. One of the biggest reasons in the master plan and in our zoning is to protect the lake environment. The fact that some of the commercial properties squish into the lake may have caused, the planners originally, when they came up with the master plan, to talk about these things. We have a very unique property where it's squished like that. We have petitioners who have interpreted in favor of the residents. And say, not, you know, they're commercial, it's gonna be a rental, but they're developing the whole area as residential. I think the sole and purpose of the ordinance was to protect the residential property. When they originally came with their first proposal, I objected to it strongly because of its impact on the adjoining residential property. They put in a single family adjoining the single family, and then they've created a commercial rental residential building as their commercial use. So instead of having commercial properties and then mixed use and then pushing on the residents, they actually have created a residential buffer of their own devise between their property and the commercial. So I think they more than satisfy the requirements of the ordinance. And I don't really see, is there other parcels in the village, any other parcel where this issue might come up again? So I could put the burden on them for it. I think they're totally meeting the spirit of the master plan and the ordinance. That's why I'm supporting it. If it really was something I thought that was germane to the village or our future, I wouldn't, you know, push it aside so quickly. But I really think the spirit of, you know, this artificially created single-family residential buffer for my neighborhood, I live there, and then just having a residential, you know, rental stuff along the way. I mean, it's the greatest compromise ever. And I think it really meets the spirit of these other ones.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Lamb on really everything he said. I think it does create a nice buffer. I really can't see that parcel being a residential and a commercial area. There's just not room. There's just not parking. I mean, I just don't see it. I think they made a strong case for why they feel that way with, you know, with the residential on the lake to buffer the adjoining community. And that's the way I see it. I mean, it does read kind of gray to me when I read that. It's just not super clear one way or the other. So it's just, I agree with Commissioner Lamb on that we would move forward with it.
You know, just to piggyback on those thoughts as well, I also agree. Essentially what we're saying, if we read it in the other position, is they're live-work units, correct? It's business on the bottom, potential residents on top. I'm not in favor of that for essentially being on the lake. I agree for, you know, single family or just family type developments. That's what I would like to see on the lake instead of a bunch of, I'll say, you know, businesses that may drive, I would say, additional potential traffic to the lake. So I understand your concern around the language, rightfully so, but I think it is gray, and as a commissioner, I'd lean on the side of, I would just say not having a live-work development in that parcel.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll weigh in also. I agree that residential only is a better use of that property. And from my perspective, I feel that the energy that ought to be expended is really around maybe cleaning up the language so that it's not an issue in the future, as opposed to getting hung up on this particular property. Because I think when I look at this particular property, I think this is the better alternative from a use standpoint, all things considered. And it just seems to me that the energy would be better spent to clean it up so that it would not present itself as a problem in the future.
I guess the one last comment is we've been going around and around and around on this project, and we should probably move it forward.
Just to piggyback on that thought too, we've seen tremendous amount of plans, different plans with different, I'll say quantities of units. Appreciate the team over there for getting it to, I think, more of an appropriate, I'll just say use for the land that's available.
Okay, any other discussion or debate? Okay, then I'd like to call a vote. I don't know if we need a roll call on this one or not. Probably wouldn't hurt.
Would you like one?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lamb,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Laurent,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Sable,
Yes.
O'Cleary,
Yes.
Dandelides.
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to move on to new business. First item on the agenda. What page are we on? Yeah, so we're on.
I just want to confirm, we got to come back for
Item eight.
council for the fire. Would that be next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as we can confirm that with our village manager and our clerk.
Do you understand my question? We had to come back to village council for the fire apparatus approval, since it's in the right of way. Are we able to get that on for next council meeting, or do you want to in-house discuss?
I'd have to discuss that with Gage, find out what information we need to
Okay, just let me know.
have ready, and this is a short week for us, it's a holiday week.
Sure.
So
Yeah, no problem.
it's cutting it real close, but I'll talk to Gage.
No problem, thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, I believe we're on page 121 of the packet.
Yep.
Sorry, let me regroup here. Okay, at our last meeting, we had residents from the predominantly Park Island approach the Planning Commission around a potential rezoning of some property approaching the Park Island itself. So this is on Park Island Drive. We agreed at that time to put this on the agenda for this month's meeting. So I know that the planner has had a chance to take a look at this, and I believe that we have some residents that also want to speak. So I'd like to ask Gage if you want to go through what you've looked at, please.
Sure. Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, as you summarized, this is a petition to rezone a portion of.
Yes,
the-
I guess I'd ask that, does everybody have a copy of
Oh.
this? If this was,
Yeah.
so you, because it was late, a late ad.
No, I got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
No, no problem. So this is a request to rezone the RM zoning district to single-family residential, essentially. So I want to note that as part of any petition to initiate a rezoning, we require a complete application. So this includes the submission of sealed plot plans of the parcels proposed for rezoning, the appropriate legal descriptions, and proof of ownership or authorization to rezone these parcels. This is a collection of almost 24 parcels. And from what I was able to glean from the petition that was submitted, only a handful of these parcels parcel owners have authorized rezoning. So there's a list in there that has all the property owners of the parcels. I counted 7 or so of those parcels authorized the rezoning. So that's not the whole contingency of those parcels there. So what I would recommend either way, the petitioners are asking the planning commission to take on this rezoning and initiate it on their behalf. But I would recommend that no rezoning take place unless there's authorization from those landowners to do such. And also, this does cost, it has a cost, and if the planning commission were to take this on, the village would be assuming the costs of reviewing this rezoning application, and also all the administrative costs for setting the public hearing, and then all the map amendments that we would need to make to make this a compliant map on your village website. Overall, the master plan supports eventually rezoning these parcels to single family, but we do have a pretty clear process for how that should be administered, and that's the petition for the map amendment. It needs to have those plot plans, and we need to understand why they want to rezone these parcels and have that entered into the record for our review. So right now, we don't have a complete application, a complete package to move forward on the rezoning. But I do want to just highlight what we do have, which is a long list of petitioners. Most of them are not within this area that are proposed for rezoning. A handful of them are. As well as, I believe the applicants are here tonight and they'd like to kind of state their reasoning for the record. But that's what I've got so far. I can't move forward on this without proper authorization and plot plans from the parcel owners.
Okay. And I think before we start asking questions, I think it would be logical, really with the presentation and the public comments, I think are probably one and the same here, or at least pretty close. So I think the best thing to do, what I'd like to recommend is that we listen to the applicant, the presentation from the applicant, and then we may have questions for both, not only about rationale, but process and how would this work and whatnot. So if that's acceptable, I'd like to kind of get everything out on the table first, and then.
Can I ask one question, since we don't have any order? Can I ask one question to Gage about the map?
Sure.
Gage, there's a property map here.
Yes.
Blue or purple or violet, I don't know what color it is.
Yep.
That is the area of the zoning district that's under.
Current RM multifamily zoning. Yep.
Okay, and then the second map is just an aerial view showing the dimension.
Yeah, just showing the structure's dimensions.
There are no maps that show the current existing use of each of those parcels.
No.
So that would be helpful. A map showing which is what right now, so.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I understand the map.
Yep.
As I look at this, so while it's Park Island Road, it's not the actual island at all.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. It's the peninsula leading up to it.
Okay.
Okay, I believe, Matt, you'd like to address?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time and the opportunity. I'll say over the last month, since we began talking about this, I've learned a lot. So I'd like to thank Gage for his help in guiding me through some of this, looking through the ordinances and the regulations and what's necessary. I'd say, I'll start off with the why. As you'd mentioned, it doesn't include Park Island. Park Island, the island itself, is all single-family residential. But the road, Park Island Road, leading up to that area, and then some of those properties or parcels on Smith Court are all currently listed as multifamily. There are some multifamily units there currently that some conform with the current ordinances, some do not. Again, based on what I'm learning with 15 units per acre, and some of these are very small parcels. So it's a wide variety of things that are going on that road, and that's why a lot of the petitioners were from Park Island as well. They may not have been, and I apologize, I didn't get more signatures due to the timing. I didn't have an opportunity. Some people were out of town. and so forth. So I wasn't able to get everyone. I've got the majority of the people on the road that are in this area that we're talking about, as well as the folks on Park Island, which will be impacted by this as well, are all well aware of this, understand it, and are really, for the most part, on board. But the real reason why is, density. If you've been down Park Island, it's an unusual little road and enclave in Lake Orion. There's a utility pole right at the corner, which only allows one car to get by at a time. Two cars can't get on that road at the same point. The road is rough in some areas and a little bit of disrepair. It gets a lot of use right now with the current residents that are there. So to potentially have further developments that would be multifamily on that road would be detrimental to the road, to the neighborhood, to the kids that play there. There's a lot of children in the area, as well as to the lake. And we've talked a little bit about the lake today as well. So, crowding, disrepair, the lake, and the additional boat traffic, that there could be additional boat slips in there if there is adjustments made to the current structure as it is. And as I was looking at this and going through this process, the one thing that jumped out, which, again, I don't have the application, and we talked about, do we submit an application? Do the residents kick in for the fees that are associated with this process, the escrow that is involved? I talked to a bunch of the residents. Everyone's involved in, chipping in and helping pay for any of the costs that would incur with this sort of initiative. But the other thing that we kind of ran across is that in the master plan, and I believe it's the mission of this planning commission, is to adhere to and drive Lake Orion towards the master plan that's been well established. I think going back some 20 years, and then reestablished again, I think in 2022 with an amendment there. And through that process, this whole area that we're talking about is actually designated to be single family. Whether it be lake single family or village single family. And I've got a map, and I'll hand that out in just a quick second, but I also have in the master plan where it talks about future land use and what that looks like for single family residential. And specifically in here it says the Village of Lake Orion single family residential character is an important and positive attribute. Single family uses encompass by far the greatest land area of any use classification. As described in the neighborhood plan, section 8, the village has a variety of neighborhoods ranging from lakeside cottages along narrow winding roads to new subdivisions and single family homes. The village wishes to retain the predominantly residential character and should work to continue to maintain and improve neighborhood and housing conditions. So it's very specific in this master plan. And I apologize for my printers running out of ink, but I've got two copies here. The first one is kind of, this is the map within your master plan. The second one is a little bit more isolated, shows that very Park Island. So just so you can see, it is clearly stated in the master plan, this direction that was intended to go for this area. Thank you. So as you can see, that's the intention with the master plan. And again, part of the reason we didn't get through the whole application process is as we discovered all this and we're digging into this a little bit, we ran out of a little bit of time, but then running across this with the master plan, my original intention was we will fill out the application, we'll do the work necessary. Certainly there's some additional costs if everything has to be sealed and we have to have the whole area surveyed. I'm not sure that's necessary because all the documents are with Oakland County, with the township, with the village. Everything is there. If there's additional things that we need, we're happy to do that. But I would say with this in mind, with the master plan, with where we would like to go, would be my ask from this planning commission to proceed, or let me know what we need to do to proceed with implementing what's been clearly stated in the master plan to make sure that this is residential and the integrity of the neighborhood is maintained.
So what is your request? Is your request that if these properties are ever sold again, that they would be changed over, or that these people that are currently own these properties, whether they're currently apartments or whatever, that they could no longer be apartments?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say there's some that conform currently to the multifamily use that's there. There are some condominiums that were built that are very nice, and, you know, they were built properly, and I wouldn't suggest any adjustments to those. There are a few properties on the lake that are going to be going up for sale pretty soon. And I think that's what facilitated this, is to say these 3 properties could potentially be turned into some sort of apartments, and I think that would be detrimental to the road, the lake, and everything else into this whole community. So currently there are, of these 3 properties, one is a single-family residential that is currently unoccupied. The 2 units next to them are both multifamily with 3 units in each, which is actually out of the current ordinance. So if you do the calculation, it is 2.1 based on the acreage right now, so they're not compliant under the current statute. And my suggestion would be to immediately halt anything, say this is where the master plan is going. No additional residential or multifamily residential should be there. Anything that's currently there that conforms, leave it as is. I think the residents are fine with leaving things as is, but if one shingle is touched for any reason, or there's an intention to tear these down and build something else, then I think it should revert immediately to single family. Is there a question?
I got a couple of questions. Gage, how many properties are within this blue diagram? Do you know?
I'd just be finger counting right here.
It looked like 26.
I've got 16 parcels that are on the water, and then there are 7 parcels on Park Island Road which don't touch the water, and there's additional 6 parcels that don't touch the water that are primarily on Smith Court, and then there's a few that on your map that are mixed use that are on M24 that aren't part of this.
So you got an idea of the total? Give it a guess.
16, 23,
20?
About 28.
28?
yep, 29.
Is that what-
In the signatures that we have,
Yes.
do we have, what percentage of those signatures are from this parcel of 28 properties?
Less than a third.
Less than what?
Less than 1/3. It's about eight parcels that have authorized the rezoning within this section.
And the worry is building something on the lake.
Correct.
I counted about 38 dwelling units. And that doesn't include the multifamily on the west side of Park Island Road, because I wasn't sure how many units are in those. But on the east side of Park Island, those are condos, aren't they?
The east side, in your map, 81, lot number
Yes.
81, that is condos. I don't know how many are in there. I believe there's about
1, 2,
9.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, so 9 condos there, and then 41 is a former single-family house that's been turned into, split into 3 or 4 separate units there as well. And again, the owner there, I wasn't able to get a hold of. He lives in, I think, north of Lapeer. Of 81, the residents that currently live there that own those condos, we're all on board. There are some renters in that area, 49, 55, 66. The properties in question are 74, 80, and 90. That is an estate that is going through some change of hands right now. So and they don't live local. Again, I'm not sure they would be in favor of this or not, since, you know, they're looking to sell these properties, obviously maximize their value. 96 is where we live, 104, 112, and then up Park Court, 111, 54, 68. And really, every single person I've talked to in this area is on board, whether I've talked to them and not gotten their signature, because I kind of rushed to get those signatures last time based on the information I was given to kind of show support.
So as I look at this map again, Smith Court is all involved. All these houses on Smith Court are in this? Should they be in it?
Based on what the master plan says, yes. Those would be, anything that is on the water would be considered lake single-family, according to the verbiage in the master plan, and those that are not on the lake, so which would be the ones east of Park Island Road that we just discussed, 81, 41, so forth, and then the ones that are that are within the highlighted boundaries on Smith Court, those are considered village single-family, based on the map that I just provided you.
So we got 38, and we got about a third of the population signing the petition, is that correct?
Correct.
And do we know how that third falls out? Is it all the lake people?
So I have it, I revised my map and just kind of scribbled some yeses. You got 44, 66, and 49 that have said yes. So that's up at the top there. You go down the lake shore, you have 96, 104, 112, 111, and then 68 Park Court that have signed that petition. The three that we're kind of worried about are the ones that are kind of outstanding, right? It's those out-of-towners that,
Correct. Yeah, there was some of those, and the folks at 54, 76, 74, they were out of town. 79 and that 428, I couldn't quite contact them. I don't know. It's an unusual piece of property, so I didn't want to start walking across that land that's currently under development to get there.
got it, yeah.
So right now, everything in blue is multifamily?
Oh, nice.
Correct.
Correct.
So we really need to go back and get some of these other people involved.
This is all multifamily. This is
Well, this won't change.
No.
This won't change. There's a piece,
These are multifamily also.
these are multifamily. Okay, thank you. That makes it very clear. Lamb?
So Gage, I'm looking at like, one is a property address map and the other one is a property parcel identification map. We were talking about all these numbers.
Yeah.
So from what I gathered from what's heard, we have three parcels here, 74, the addresses are 74, 80, and 90 that are owned by an absentee property owner and they're going to come for sale. And we have residents concerned about a new development on these three parcels. Particularly, that seems to be the urgency I'm hearing.
Right.
And then all of the adjoining waterfront neighbors have signed the petition. Okay?
Right.
All right, so that seems to be one of the big concerns
Yeah,
that.
his map really lays it out nicely. Yeah.
And so, what is the current use for those 74, 80, 90? What can they currently, under the ordinance, put there on the water? What's currently allowed by the ordinance?
Yeah, it's currently zoned multifamily residential, so they could go up to multifamily, 2-3 family dwellings. If they don't already exist there, they can do single family. There's a host of other permitted uses within RM, but primarily,
Multifamily,
yeah.
so basically apartments are the highest use?
Apartments, townhouses, efficiency units, so those are small footprint apartments, flats.
Efficiency.
Funeral homes, bed and breakfasts, hospitals.
Maybe
Those are for special land use though.
So premium, before premium, and the density there, I'm sorry.
So that's gonna be 15 dwelling units per acre. I'm not sure what the acreage is off the top of my head, but these are smaller lots. I
Yeah.
believe.
So it looked like they're about 100 by 60
Point.
lots or something like that.
Yeah, 0.4 acres. Just based on my rough calculations, about 0.4 acres.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what's that?
How many was that?
0.4 acres for that whole three lots.
15 is 6 units.
6 units, yes.
So you put 3 duplexes up there or
Yeah,
6 unit
townhouse if they combine.
townhouses. And you guys are close.
Yeah,
Adam's
just a
the
quick
opposed.
question for you, Gage, I guess.
Yeah.
So what is the current process for a rezoning? Isn't it typically the landowner requests the rezoning? Or do we have a precedent somewhere where something has been rezoned underneath somebody.
So you can't rezone property without authorization of the property owner. That's one of the items that is required for applications to rezone, whether that's initiated by members of the public or by the planning commission. We still would not recommend moving forward with the rezoning without authorization. And that's,
So just to clarify, because I had the same question, so if we didn't get signatures from every one of those owners, we can't rezone, is that correct?
not the entirety of what is being asked for. We could do a collective rezoning for the properties that have been authorized, but we wouldn't be able to rezone those 3 parcels that are in question, and whoever else are holdouts from the petition.
And that's regardless of whether a resident
Being adjacent.
initiates the
Here,
petition,
it's
whether planning
contiguous.
commission or village council,
Yes.
regardless,
Yeah.
you have to
Then it
have a
would be
signature.
spot zone.
Yeah, I was speaking with our zoning administrator, village manager. There is no separate process for a planning commission initiated petition. It's the same documents, the same procedures. You have to go through the public hearing, present plot plans, get authorization, the whole 9 yards.
And so if I read this correctly, in order to have a complete package that includes H on number 2, B2 map amendment, that's proof of ownership and authorization of the owner to rezone the property.
Correct.
So realistically, before we could even do a public hearing, before we could do anything, we'd have to have signatures of everyone within that blue box.
Right. That is,
Okay.
that is the procedure, yeah.
So my understanding that, so in some previous instances of rezoning I've worked on, the petitioners of the property sought rezoning, and then the surrounding community sought to stop them from rezoning. So it wasn't a forced situation where the external owners forced a rezoning. It's usually someone is proposing rezoning and then the neighbors are adverse to it. That's
Right.
the
Right, I think this is a unique situation, I think.
unique situation. So did you just say we don't have the authority to rezone any property without the property owner's permission?
Based on the procedures for map amendments, whether they're initiated by planning commission or the public, proof of ownership and authorization of the owner to rezone is part of that process. You need to have that authorization.
And that is in the ordinance, correct?
Yeah, that's section 2, 1905 2H,
So then it's not up to us
correct?
to make that.
Well,
Just to clarify, to take this whole area and rezone it, the way I look at it is problematic. If we wanted to look at an application from 96, 104, and 112 to rezone to single-family, I believe we could make the argument that's contiguous to single-family on the island, and it would not be effectively spot zoning, and that would be appropriate. Looking at any of these others, individual properties who may want to have their properties rezoned, I think that's something that's completely appropriate for us to look at on a case-by-case basis. What I see as problematic is taking all of these parcels, this whole district, and the village or planning commission initiating the rezoning on its own. We're potentially creating problems for these property owners, these condo owners, who, by rezoning their properties, we have now made their properties non-conforming. I have some serious concerns about that. But to look at individual property owners, any of you who live along Park Island Drive and you want us to consider your individual properties and start to rezone those to start to bring parcel by parcel into compliance with what the future land use calls for, I'm completely open to that.
So if we did have an application and it did go through the public hearing and did get approved, this could be rezoned to single family, regardless of whether it's village or lake, but single family. If we had all those signatures, it would not change anybody's current usage, but what it would change is if you did a complete melt and repour, you knocked it down, rebuilt, now you would have to do that under the new zoning, correct?
Right. I believe it is a state law that you can't force a
Right.
property owner to.
And that's logical.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
But yes, any sort of like structural alterations would have to either conform with the ordinance or conform with our non-conforming ordinance. We have a whole section for non-conformities.
Would there, and Matt, this is probably a question for you.
Sure.
Would there be a logic that would suggest just the lakefront properties be rezoned to take the scope of this down to something more manageable? And since a lot of the use on the non-lake properties is already multifamily,
Yep.
it kind of would take that out of the mix. Would that achieve the same kind of desired results?
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal, right? Let's keep, that was the original intention of how are we going to protect the lake and this road if these things were to go up for sale and there's a potential for tearing them down and, you know, rebuilding these areas. The rest of the properties in the area have kind of been rebuilt, in some areas, not all of them. So there is, I mean, that would be step number one, is that whole area along the lake. But I guess my question back to the board and the planning commission engage is there a way to do that whole strip if those three property owners didn't sign off on that?
I think Gage answered that question.
Yeah.
I don't think there would be.
Yeah, you couldn't,
I mean, you wouldn't even have a majority.
Well, then I guess my question back to this board is, why do we have a master plan? And the master plan states, this is what the intention was with the master plan to go to this whole area single family. So that was the intention.
and I think that's a very valid question. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that question goes to Gage or Darwin perhaps, but,
Yeah.
because the master plan does suggest that that's the future usage. So how do we migrate to that? If we have something existing, yet the big picture master plan says we should be migrating to something else, what's the avenue to get there?
I would say that it's usually not a wholesale rezoning. The future land use map is in place to allow for future decisions, usually on a parcel by parcel basis. You get special land use applications, rezonings, variances. When we're considering approving any of those, usually we look at that individual parcel, its relationship to the surrounding parcels, and whether it meets the intent of the future land use, the master plan, and also the current zoning ordinance, right?
But if a landowner comes in and says, hey, I want to knock down my house and I want to build a duplex, and the zoning on that lot is multifamily, then regardless of the master plan, certainly that homeowner, that landowner's not going to say, oh yeah,
Right.
let's execute the master plan. I won't do what I want to do on my lot to execute the master plan.
Yeah, the zoning is the law. The future land use is just a guide for you all when you're considering rezoning applications, text amendments, variances, things like that. We have to abide by the ordinance as it stands today, but that's what future land use map is for, to help you make these decisions.
Matt, just real quick.
Sure.
I understand this whole group that's on the lakeside. And on the Bayside, like 111, 54, 68, 76, are those all individual homes, or are they?
Yeah,
Or
the
not?
up Park Court, those are all individual homes. So
Yeah.
everything up that way. The only ones that are multifamily, well, I should say, 41, like I said,
Yeah.
3 to 4 units. 81 is the condos. Everything up in that other corridor of Park Court is all single family. And then currently 90 is divided. It's a house that's a duplex and then a garage unit. So there's actually 3 units currently being rented on that property. And 80 is a 3-unit kind of, it's a house that was chopped into 3 units.
Okay, thank you.
I had a quick question. Matt, has anybody directly spoken to the person that owns those 3?
Yeah, I'm in contact with him on a regular basis. It's a long story. The gentleman, the elderly couple that owned those 3 lots, he passed away about 10 years ago. She was running them. She developed some dementia and some health problems. There was 3 remaining children. One of the remaining children was kind of managing the whole property. He was killed in a motorcycle accident just recently, and within a few weeks after that, the mother passed away as well in the hospital. There's 2 remaining children, one that lives in Florida, one that lives in Mount Morris, that are kind of running the estate, and I would say they're in a little bit of, they're trying to figure it out. They're super nice people, but I think they're trying to figure it out right now, and they're in the process of putting those up for sale right now.
Okay, are you Mr. Rykard?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I do have a card here for public comment on this topic. I take some leeway here and ask him to go ahead and speak as we continue to talk.
Okay. Robert Reard, 328 South Broadway. A lot of you know me. Park Island Drive has more multi-residential than single-family. As you drive down Park Island, the first building on the north is a 5-unit multiple residential. As you go south around the corner, there are 2 houses on the east and 2 houses on the west. Then you have a large multiple residential on the east. I don't know what it is, I think you said 9, I think it's more than that, but units or more. In west, you have 5 units. As you go farther, you have a 4-unit multi-residential on the east side. You had 3 single-family houses on the west side. So if you're gonna make a change, I guess you probably should make it all multi-residential than single-family, okay? Second of all, you do something like this, you're gonna have everybody in the neighborhood that don't like the rentals next to them trying to do the same thing. You'd be opening a can of worms you'd never be able to close. So it's not even, it's ludicrous to even think about it. Most of these signatures are from residentials living west of the bridge, in other words, on the island itself. That's their own community, it doesn't really affect them. I believe Matt Phillips has his own personal agenda, and there's no way is to help our community. The other thing is you can't take somebody's property, it's against the law, it's unconstitutional, right off the top. So when you're going down a road, you don't want to go down. Second of all, if you're going to do a zoning change, it has to be for the health and welfare and well-being of the community, and doing this won't change anything. Now, as far as anybody trying to develop anything there, those properties aren't very deep from the lake to Park Island. And being that you got to have 2 parking spaces for each unit, what are you going to put there? What are you going to put there that's any more than there now? It's not going to be. And somebody's not going to pay $1 million, $1.5 million, or $2 million and try to redevelop that little bit of area. So as a former planner myself, I sat on this commission for like 5 years. I'm suggesting that you guys vote now and make a decision not to go down this road with this, okay? You'll just be in a situation that you can't deal with, and I suggest if you don't believe me, talk to your attorney, and they'll tell you that, you can't just go take somebody's property and change it. Worried about future, we have all kinds of property all over the lakes that have residential multi that people rent out. So are you going to go after everybody down in this community? So another thing I guess we should say, well, why should we let Masheri build multi-units on the water? you're telling me you want to stop multi-units on the lake on Park Street, but we can build them down M24, and that's just right? So I appreciate your time. I'm telling you, as I said, as a former member and just knowing the laws, and I got this legal advice, from an attorney, that I'm suggesting that you guys don't do these kind of changes anywhere in the village. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's your address?
96.
So, can I make a comment?
Sure.
When I looked at this map, there had a couple, the map was, and
Excuse me, Mr. Lamb, could you pull your mic down?
So I looked at the map that he only had one copy of, that's what we were looking to get, was the, and I kind of agree with Mr. McCleary in, I don't think it's appropriate to rezone people's property that don't want it rezoned or haven't requested it. Okay, I'm a big property rights kind of guy. I like fences too. And, but you seem to have a, group of contiguous property owners abutting the lake shore. If you want to, dictate the future destiny of yourself and the neighbors around you, I personally wouldn't have a problem considering a rezoning request, for your 3 lots and the one across the street that are all abutting residential and have no impact on the people on the other side. Because I don't believe going to a lesser use impacts a higher use property. So if you take a multi-use and turn it into residential, I don't think it affects the multi-use people because they're higher use. So I would support Darwin in that kind of recommendation. But after listening to all this stuff, I wouldn't feel comfortable in enforcing a rezoning on property owners that didn't agree. And I think legally, it even sounds like Mr. Belko said, it's not legal for us to do that. So my opinion, your choices are get everybody to sign or reconsider your request before you spend a lot of money and time and energy. But I really wanted to hear this. I wanted to hear what you wanted, and I wanted to hear all this, and I think
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I want to do what's right by the community. I'm not just thinking about, myself, which I think there was an implication that this is self-serving of some sort. It's not. This is about the community and the lake. This is a residential area, okay? Park Island's a residential road. I live on the road. I'm not sure anyone else here does. It's difficult getting up and down that road sometimes. If there's a garbage truck, you're stuck for 5 minutes waiting to get around that road. You start adding more places, and it's going to become a bit of a nightmare. And now an eyesore on the lake, which we'd all like to protect in this community. Listen, what's happening with the Moshiri developments, it is what it is, and it's, if it meets and conforms with whatever everyone else is, whatever's been established in that area, whether it be multi-use, multifamily, whatnot. I know they build a great property, and they're primarily on M24. This is a little bit off M24. This should be a neighborhood, and that's all I'm asking. And again, just based on what the master plan is and what the direction is or guidance that I think this board should be going towards, I think that should be in consideration. I will tell you that guarantee everyone outside of those 3 properties, they would sign something immediately to say, we're going to lock this down as a single family. So I can go down that path, and I'll speak with those folks about what their intentions are, but certainly they want to maximize the income out of there. The other thing I would say is I would have some questions, and maybe that's to you, about those are non-conforming properties currently because the density is too much for what is allowed under the ordinances currently. So that's maybe another matter for another day, and maybe we can talk about that, Gage. But
Matt, just a note,
Sure.
there's no conforming properties in Lake Orion.
I
Trust me.
I agree with you there. I guess I meant,
Yours is conforming? You're the only one.
I would say in terms of density, the density ordinance is there, so misspoke, but I agree with you.
So, one more suggestion is.
Sure.
I really think you might spend a couple more minutes with Mr. Belko and find out exactly what a multifamily on those properties would look like.
Yep.
Because we had some talk about required parking,
required density, setbacks conforming to modern standards if those buildings come down, and see if maybe your concerns aren't, as strong. Maybe they can't really have what it might seem to you that could happen there.
Right. That's a possibility. Appreciate you bringing that up.
So kind of from my perspective, I think Gage he made it clear to me that we cannot force rezoning on a property owner, right? So I think that whole concept, I think, is out the window. So I guess where I'm coming from is, I think it's worth pursuing. However, in order to get buy-in from all of those residents, or even if it were just the lake residents, I believe that it would be the onus of the folks that are interested in doing that, as opposed to the planning commission taking that on. I don't think it's something the planning commission can drive. The only reason I could think of the planning commission wanting to take it on would be to execute the master plan.
Yeah.
But my question around, well, what was the plan to execute the master plan? And it doesn't sound to me like there was a plan, or there is a plan to do that, or even a way to do it.
Well, no, they'd have the way.
I think.
He could choose to make his property conforming, and then we would support it. That's usually how it's done. So if he
But
decides,
it would make no sense to make one or two individual lots, and I think that goes to what Darwin was saying, to do it spotty.
oh no,
But-
that discussion was a contiguous request by several
Right.
property.
Right. So since you can't force rezoning on a property owner, I would come back to the Park Island community and say, if this is really where we want to go, then let's get those signatures. And then I would say, come back. And then I think if we came back with this map with signatures on every one of these properties, I think that would be something that, as a planning commission, we would take on.
Agreed.
But I think for the planning commission to try and drive that back to the homeowners,
Certainly understand
I
the
don't
position
think
you
we
guys are in.
have to do that, honestly.
Sure. Want to do what's right for the village. So, sure. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So I don't think there's a motion or anything to vote on.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll be back. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to say, I appreciate so much the hard work that residents put into this. And again, I hope that the message that they take back is that the planning commission hopefully is open to the idea, if there are individual applicants who want for us to consider the rezoning of their properties, and it's legal to do so. I think getting a block of property owners together that are contiguous, that are already adjacent to single-family residential, who want us to consider rezoning, I think that's something that's very appropriate. And, but I appreciate the planning commission's findings that this approach just would not work. For one thing, it wouldn't comply with the zoning code and the requirement that property owners approve of the rezoning of their properties. And that's section 19.05B2H. That applications must include proof of ownership and authorization of the owner to rezone their property.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, new business B, the planning and zoning report for October. Gage, I believe you passed those out to us earlier.
Yeah, you should have physical copies.
Yep.
No, nothing too, nothing too groundbreaking or earth-shattering here. Just wanted to highlight your McKenna team as well. Feel free to reach out to any one of us with any questions regarding planning and zoning that you might have. I'll be in the office tomorrow, and I also host online office hours on Thursday mornings. Hopefully you're getting used to your Chromebooks. Let me know how things are going. If we need to improve anything or make adjustments, we're happy to do that.
Quick thing while we're talking about that.
Yeah,
I could not open the entire package at home.
got it.
I could get to page 47, that was it.
I wonder if after page
I don't know
40
if it's my equipment or your equipment.
I think that's probably it. It's a lot of CPUs, I would say, just in order to open the file and then be
Site
able to move
plans.
throughout the files.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a way within, I'll just say, to save it and compress the file, you know, or maybe is there a way to,
Look into it
uh,
per page.
maybe that's another avenue, or to take the actual prints themselves and make them somewhat of a separate file. So we have basically, you know, I'll say PDF documents, standard PDF documents, letter, style, size paper, and then the architectural prints, which I'm guessing are taking up the majority of.
Yeah, well, I read all of their
File.
stuff because I could get it.
Yeah, I think
I couldn't get anything after that.
we can discuss breaking up the
Yeah, we could
agenda.
send a link instead.
Oh, yeah, a link instead.
That's even better. Yep.
And put the individual documents in a link, and then they'll just link out to the portals.
I think,
Then I have the same problem when I try to print.
yeah.
When I pull that packet out, the printer won't hold all that.
But I would get.
We'll see, we can figure something out.
So we can figure out providing a link to these documents so that they're navigable on your browser or your Adobe PDF.
Well, those all loaded in perfectly fine until I got the page.
Files are just big when you have all those
I did get,
They're large files, yeah.
on the same theme, I did get confused because in the council packets, everything is sequential. And here we have to jump to the appendixes for the things.
I see, yeah.
That kind of that's why I got confused, I'm sorry, but I prefer them all to be sequential. Like, if we're gonna scroll on this thing, I can, you know, it's easier for me to flow through the agenda if everything's sequentially.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
I think I'm understanding what you're saying.
Now I
Just
don't have to
making sure.
click or look over, and, you know, go to the appendix and then jump back to the next item. I can just go through everything,
Sure.
flowing like water.
I'll work with Susan on that, just making sure it's a little more sequential and
Yep.
easier
You know,
to
if it's
follow.
convenient, if not.
I'll make sure I have the packet numbers printed out on my reports too. But we'll keep making changes and making it easier for you guys, so thanks for
We
bringing up
like
those
it,
issues.
we like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is working out. I can zoom with my fingers and stuff, you know?
It's kind of nice, right?
Yeah, it's actually much better than I anticipated.
Yeah. Let's see, just running down the list here, fee schedule revisions. I think we're still working on that with the administration and council. Still working on getting township BSNA up and running for us to process permits a little more easily. We targeted a beginning of the year launch for this. I still don't have the necessary access for their BSNA program, so we're still waiting on that. Master plan, the strategic action plan, this involves putting together a presentation for council as to the merits of RRC. So we actually do have that tentatively scheduled for the second council meeting this month. We're going to be meeting with our RRC planner tomorrow to discuss kind of what we want to present and how that's going to look. So be on the lookout for that, for those of you who are representing council here. Short-term rental ordinance, we do have a proposal, I believe, we talked about this last month. We need to get you the information and the proposal so that you can make a recommendation to council, whether they should pursue this type of ordinance. So we will make sure that that's on your agenda for next month. Board of Zoning Appeals bylaws, we're just gonna get them done this month, no matter what. We're gonna host the meeting, they're gonna elect their officers and adopt some bylaws, so that should be happening here soon. Park Island rezoning, I threw it on there just to note it as an active initiative. while we might not be pursuing the whole of that peninsula to be rezoned, we might look at more of a sequential or smaller bites approach. Going through the permit details, I mean, I don't need to list out all of these, but we were pretty active in October. Surprisingly, I think everyone's just trying to take advantage of that last breath of summer air to build stuff. But moving on to the current project details, Orion Villas is one that is actually on the move again. We received their final plans. So we're working through administrative approval. It's being reviewed by township and village engineers. And then I'll come back and make sure that they hit all of the points of the planning commission approval. Let's see, West Village PUD. That site plan was approved, as you know, in September. The applicant is attempting to work out as many details as possible before it goes before the council, so that they can execute the actual PUD agreement itself. We've got some issues with site plan in that they might not have all of the land that was originally presented in the site plan application. So if it ends up being that they can't secure title and control of that piece of land, this is gonna have to come back before the planning commission again. But that would be an amended PUD. We'd go through the process and review it again for you. But just be aware that that might be on your docket again if we can't get it all squared away.
Is the whole up that little piece of land that nobody knows who owns?
It's part of it. There's an actual part of their residential parking. It's south of that triangle. It's a square. It's the second parking lot.
Okay.
That was intended to be for their residents to park there. It was included in their density calculations. They don't have title or control of that yet. And so that was a condition of your approval, but it might need to be a condition of PUD execution that land be secured, and if not, it's gonna take a whole rethinking, recalculation for density and parking and potentially a different site layout, so we need to look at that when the time comes. But they're still trying to get that land through their own legal process. It's more of a civil matter than anything. Cloud Retail, nothing there. Constellation Bay, still working on engineering approval. They're close, they're almost there.
For some of these projects, excuse me, Gage, but for some of these projects, do you just sit on them until somebody comes back to you like this?
Yeah.
Like this Cloud Retail, that, you know, we approved everything back in April 3rd, and doesn't seem to be anything happening there.
Yeah, so a lot of these site plan approvals, they do carry an expiration date. It's usually a year after your approval before they need to move forward.
Okay.
So at about the 6-month mark, so the midway point, I'll nudge them, which is about now. I'll nudge them and say, hey, about halfway through your approval period, you might want to consider getting a move on. So that's the idea with Cloud Retail. Orion Villas, I did the same thing. I kind of just nudged them. That was a little early on in the process. But most of these, they are still moving along. Constellation Bay and Mystic Cove. Mystic Cove, let's see. They've pretty much concluded site demolition. So we're just waiting on that final seal of engineering approval, and then I'll review everything for site plan compliance, and it should be good to go. Starboard, pending your review and approval with the conditions that we noted tonight, that has been approved, so we'll move forward with getting village council approval for that right-of-way encroachment and ironing out the details for administrative review. 146 South Broadway, that was the facade project. The applicant is working to address the administrative items that we noted. So that's kind of in their court, but we're up to speed in communication. The Peninsula, we're still waiting on revised site plans for your review. This is the site condominium, single-family use. The county will review all the site condo documents and approve that separate. So really, it's just the planning commission and site plan review we need to get through. And then there really hasn't been any movement on Jacobson's Flowers. I'm waiting from the township to kind of set up a meeting to discuss additional interlocal agreements or regulations, but it's largely an Orion Township site, so I don't want to step on too many toes there. But still a lot of active projects and still a lot of work for me to do, so thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Need a motion to receive and file?
Motion to receive and file the planning and zoning report.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, commissioners' comments. Let's start at this end. Darwin?
Mr. Chairman, shockingly, I have nothing to say, and nothing more to say tonight. Thank you.
I guess I'll just make a brief comment on Park Island rezoning petition. You know, I can understand the concern around I'll just say the area and the desire to rezone based on the residents and even the residents that live actually on the island. You know, I understand even kind of the questions today that we asked around, you know, hey, we have a master plan and we're working towards the goals for the village towards this plan, but yet the roadblocks or barriers that are in front of us to execute not only this, I'll say, area within the master plan, but, you know, future areas. So I don't know, I'm not saying we did a poor job by any means in terms of developing the master plan. You know, maybe my idea is, hey, it's a potential realized future state for the village, knowing all the barriers that potentially could exist, and this being somewhat of a learning experience for me, seeing this potential one. You know, I don't want to say I don't know if we ever get there, but I don't know if there's some future conversations or considerations around the master plan and what challenges could be presented within those areas. So maybe there's more of a, you know, potential realized actual state that we can get to as opposed of, I'll say a wish, if there's better language.
Just one thing, go vote tomorrow.
Julian?
Oh, sure. I always have something to say.
I'll say something. I'm just really happy that we are moving forward on the Starboard project. I think we're lucky to have a developer like the Mosseri Group who shows a sense of urgency with moving forward with their projects. It gets a little frustrating when we discuss projects and 6 months later, you don't see the sense of urgency to move forward and continue to work on the project that you brought before us. So it's nice to see a group that does do that. And I won't say we reward them for that, but it's easier to work with a developer like that when you know that they're doing what's really good for your community. So I'm really happy that we did move forward on that.
Me too. The short-term rental ordinance. Okay, it's been brought up in the planning and zoning report. They're working on something. This is a slippery slope that we slide upon. The person's right to rent their house out to someone, I believe, is a right, because they're going to rent their house out for someone to stay there and live there. But for some reason, society's differentiated short-term rentals from renting your house out. And then short-term rentals basically are hotels, okay? Whether 1 unit, 2 unit, they're hotels. And I don't want a hotel next to my house, and nobody on my street or that I talk to wants one next to theirs. So I caution the village with creating the excuse to create a short-term residential, short-term rental ordinance to prevent some future problem from occurring doesn't get it with me. I like the other side of the village where the village is always telling people, well, that's the way it's always been and we're not gonna change it unless somebody sues us, okay? So that's the typical stance of the community. So I'm not in favor of any short-term rental ordinances. If we want to provide a motel and hotel ordinance for some of these, downtown buildings, they can have a little single-unit motel or hotel, I would much rather see it characterized with the description like that, as opposed to this highly emotional and arguable short-term rental title. They do that up in Washington all the time. They change the name of stuff and then the economic development plan or something. So I think maybe we should consider changing it from short-term rental to like motel or hotel or something more saying that we want to provide this type of short-term rental in the business community section only forever. And so it becomes confusing. The other thing is I think that we need to all be careful about our consideration of what economic development is in the village and not to get caught up by what a lot of people say is economic development. Economic development is when the values of the property of the village go up to create higher tax revenues for the benefit of the community. Economic development isn't for your house to go up so you can make more money when you sell it. Okay, economic development is defined as the increase in taxable value of the properties for the benefit of the community. So when there's no benefit to the community from any of these economic developments, I wonder the legality of any of it. So those are my two thoughts tonight, and I really appreciate the citizens coming and spending all that time. And Darwin, thank you for your support with them. That's very difficult when someone wants to, are worried about development next to their property and they really don't know what to do. So I think we did them a service by explaining their options.
And relative to the Park Island discussion, I really think we landed in the right place from the perspective of this being bubbled up from that area of the community. And I really think that we obviously can't drive the rezoning of somebody's property. That needs to bubble up from there. So I think we made the right choice, or we made the right decision in, I don't want to say putting that back on the residents, but I don't think that's our role in the Planning Commission to take something like that on. I think if that comes back with all the signatures, I think then it's appropriate for us to support that. But I don't think that's where we want to try and be driving, so I think we landed in the right spot. Okay. With that, our next meeting will be December 4th, 7:30.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Second?
All in favor?
All in favor? Opposed? Nay?
Okay. Good job, George.